Isaac Newton nearly blinded himself with his own needle in his own experiment and by choice. He was interested in light, and he wanted to understand what seeing actually is. Not just what enters the eye, but what happens inside it. And instead of observing from a distance, he decided to test it on himself. And what he chose to do next is the part that nearly cost him his sight. This will be hard to hear, but he takes a bodkin, a thin, blunt metal tool, and brings it towards his eye. Slowly, carefully, he finds a position most people would never think about, the narrow space between the eyeball and the bone of the socket, close enough to feel it without breaking through. He then presses, just enough to apply pressure, and then almost immediately, something changes. His vision doesn't disappear, it shifts. The shapes begin to form. The colours appear out of nowhere. Patterns start moving across his field of view. Circles, arcs, flashes of light that aren't coming from the world around him. He's sitting in darkness and still seeing light. What he's doing is triggering the retina. The part of the eye that normally reacts to light is now reacting to pressure instead of the light. Signal is still being sent to the brain, and the brain is still turning it into vision. That alone tells him something most people at the time didn't understand. Seeing isn't just about what's out there. It's something your body is actively creating. He adjusts the pressure. He changes the angle. He watches how shapes respond and how patterns move. Each movement giving him slightly different results. Almost like he's mapping out his own vision from the inside. And the longer he does it, the more unstable the effects become. The shapes don't just appear and disappear, they linger. They move even when he stops. They distort what he's actually looking at. At one point, the effects became so strong, his vision didn't return to normal straight away. So he does something else. He sits in a dark room for days. No light, no stimulation, just waiting to see if his sight comes back to the way it was before. Because at that point, he doesn't know if it will. The eye is one of the most delicate structures in the body. Even small pressure can change how it functions. Too much in the wrong place at the wrong angle, and the damage can be permanent. Distorted vision, blind spots, or even loss of sight. And Newton knew that, but he also knew something else. Every time he pushed it further, he learned something no one else had seen before. He began to understand that light itself could be broken apart, and that idea would go on to change optics completely. It would lead to experiments with prisms, the separation of light into colours, and eventually a deeper understanding of how vision works. But all of this started with him sitting alone, pressing a metal tool against his own eye, and watching shapes that shouldn't exist. Because the question mattered more than the risk to Isaac Newton. And the closer he got to the answer, the closer he got to losing the one thing that allowed him to see it. His sight. If you enjoyed the experiment that nearly blinded Isaac Newton, do me a favour and subscribe.